Hello and welcome to another video. We're going to go ahead and start looking closely at a spreadsheet after we learned how to use in the previous video how Excel does its own mathematics calculation using both formulas which we make as users or using the built-in function. We're going to focus on those also a little bit farther in this video, so let's go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and get into the cell B3, and I'm going to write name here. Then I'm going to write here John, Susie, Jack, and Mary. So we have four people here. And let's say I'm going to go ahead and keep track of the last 3 months of sales from April. And you notice April is a word registered or exists inside the list of option for us when we use the fill handle. So as you notice here, I'm using the fill handle in the lower right corner, and suddenly of course it fills it for the additional month May and June. If you want to know how to build that, this is nothing magical about it. You must go to the file, which is the main menu that will allow you to tweak how Excel works. You go to options and you could go to advanced, and as you notice we could scroll all the way down and I could go ahead and edit the list, which in this case you'll be able to see that the month April is already built in it. So if I wanted to go ahead and build, let's say I wanted to say John, those are my employee, and I'm going to go ahead and put comma Susie and Jack and Mary, and if I added these they become another list to the previously existing list, and as a result I could go ahead and okay here. So in case I wanted to another okay, sorry, if I start with John, then I could either use it to the right, to the left, whatever direction you want. You notice I did actually those 4 names, so this is nothing really special about it, but knowing where it is, it helps you. I'm going to try to stick with this approach. If something really not clear, I'll take my moments or drift a little bit from the main topic in order to tell you where everything is. Anyway, let's go ahead and put here, let's say I wanted to put 100, and let me go ahead and stick with the sales of John for the same value. So since this is 100, I could use the fill handle, and the fill handle will actually fill with the same value. If I wanted to have a different value, let's say Susie started with 11, and I could say here 12, and if I wanted to go ahead at 11, 12, 13, 14, I could use this, but I need to select those 2 first, then I could go ahead and use the fill handle. And let's go ahead and do those randomly. So we'll see here, this is a very good salesperson, Jack, here, and here we go, just to get that. And I'm going to select all these and go into the formatting, which is in this case I'm going to go ahead and use the accounting, as you notice, which is if I do actually declare this or enlarge the width of this, you will notice that that $ is all the way to the left. Since the whole thing is selected, I could go ahead and change the currency. As you notice, the formatting currency is the $ right to the left of the number. Just for you to know, of course, all the formatting has to do with the numerical values. It's going to come from here. If you need more, of course, you're going to go to the dialog box, and you're going to have a lot more option available for us. So this is basically, we could spend a whole hour trying to teach you all the different formatting. More importantly than anything else is the custom format, which we're going to come across how to use it in the future videos. All right, let's assume that this is, for whatever reason, I received this video like this. It's completely distorted and you cannot even see it. You notice the pound sign here showing on the cell as a result of not having enough width in the column to show me the data. If I click between the 2 columns double click very quickly, you notice it's going to enlarge the width of the column to enough in order to show you the data. But anyway, I'm going to distort this on purpose, and I'm going to also distort it from the row as well. So this is really very unattractive at this moment, but how could we restore the original layout? It's no big deal. We could go to this area here and click on it. That will select the whole sheet, and then you click between any two columns very quickly, and of course you could go between any two rows and click quickly, and here we go, we restored the original format. If you wanted to have a larger width or height, of course you could select the whole thing here, and only you need to enlarge one of these from all of them will be enlarged. The same thing for if I selected the rows. If you wanted to change them, you need to select them all. As you notice, the whole thing is being enlarged. Width is for the column and height for the row. So now we could go ahead and put it a little bit back here, and we're ready to go ahead and do the calculation. The very first thing that you need to know, there is many ways, maybe 5, 6, even sometimes 8 different ways of doing the same thing in Excel. You will feel comfortable with one way or the other over the time, which is, comes with a practice. So let's go ahead first of all to show you how many different ways we could add the values for each one of these employees. I want to see the total, so I'm going to label this cell. Label meaning a caption, a description of what is the data is going to be under that title. And if I wanted to go ahead and show you the first way of adding these 3 values, please don't do any don't use this approach at all in the future. When we first way, it should not be used, because that kills the purpose of using Excel as a massive powerful spreadsheet, and you'll turn it into a really a cheap calculator if you start using the values as constants. And here we go. Let's say I have 3 of them. As a net result, it's going to give you initially the right addition of 100 plus 100 plus 100, which is wonderful. However, this is going to kill everything Excel can offer you when it comes to its different feature. For example, I cannot use the fill handler later to do the calculation for Susie and Jack and Mary, as you will see. It kept the same thing, and more importantly, then you should keep in your mind the whole purpose of using Excel. If the value need to be changed, if it's a variable by nature, then you should be able to change that value, and the calculation should reflect that change. For example, if I change this to 200, notice that total is still a 300, so it didn't reflect the change, and that's why we should be using, instead constants, we should be using the cell address to reference that value. As we all know, equal sign is the beginning of or telling Excel, hey, wake up, I'm about to give you something to calculate for me. So now Excel is getting ready to either get a function or get a formula, meaning a way of doing things. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one here as a cell address, plus this D4 as a cell address, plus this one here E4 as a cell address. It's working fine, and it's going to do what Excel is supposed to be doing by changing automatically the calculation or the result of the calculation as a change in the data takes place. So obviously this is very good. It's debatable whether this approach is good or not. For 3 cells, it's no big deal. But can you imagine if I have 300 or 400 cells to add in this approach? If that's the case, then I'll have to ask myself, do I have a function that will allow me to really add those values without having to click 300 different times? As I said earlier, 3 is not a big deal, but when the number of the cell gets too large, then it's going to be a waste of time to use this approach. So if there is a function in Excel that will allow me to use it in order to come with that result, yes, there is a function. It's called sum, and this is where it gets interesting to where I'm going to access sum. The first thing I could go ahead and notice that sum is a very powerful, actually it's the most used function in Excel. There is multiple places that you could access it, and this is sum, average, count, max, minimum. So it's available for us, and if you notice, of course, it needs to be in the right cell. This is the wrong cell here, it has to be here. And if you notice, as you will see here, when I click on auto sum, Excel was right this time, but it's not going to be right every time when you allow it to select for you the data that you wanted to include in the calculation. So it gives me the name sum, so obviously this is a function. All functions have parentheses. Then it tells me I'm going to sum for you everything between C4, and the colon should be looked at as a through E4. And as a result, you will be able to see now the sum function is working very nicely. And if I change this to whatever value, of course, since the not enough width, no problem. I'm double clicking. So it immediately reflected this. This is most of the time you will not go beyond this. But let me go ahead and complete the story and to show you how many other ways you could really do the sum function, and you decide for yourself which one you want. Sometimes you want it to interact directly with the function by giving it certain type of argument. You're going to use the word argument here. It's really the variable or the value that you wanted to give the function, so the function will return usually one single value. It's not usually all the time. One single value a function will return for you. So it says function arguments. I clicked. I wanted to go ahead, since the sum is there, I'm going to delete it so we could start to see the whole thing. I'm going to click on the fx. This is the insert function through the function formula. Click on it. It says which function do you want to use. Most of the time the function that we use repeatedly going to show here, but in case it doesn't show, you type sum and hit OK. And now I could see all the function that start with sum. We're going to talk about some of these in the future, like some f and some ifs and some products that are very powerful function. Okay, I need everyday sum, and it tells me which one you want it to sum. I'll say, okay, I want it to sum this. So I give it the range, which is again C4 through E4. Of course, you could add a lot of other. You could add those if you want. You could add different values from different sheet. But in this case, I wanted to agree only that I need this range, which is C4 through E4. And I'm going to click OK, and here we go. We ended up with the same result. The beauty of using anything has to do with the cell address. Now you will see that I'm going to be able to use the fill handle, which is I'm going to leave it for, see here, but we want to discuss what happens behind the scene. So let's go ahead and see what else we can do with the sum. You could go to the formula, and the formula is a ribbon that has all the function under special category, which really makes it much easier for you to access some type of function, like for example when you had to deal with dates or time, if you're looking for mathematical functions, some other function that we don't think about, but you really need to take some times in or play with, especially the statistical function, the financial function, the accounting function. Those could be extremely helpful. And now to go back to the auto sum, it's right here, and we could get the same thing. And what I prefer myself is to start with equal sign. You type the word sum, or if you don't feel like typing the whole thing, you could use the down arrow to get to that word, then hit the tab key, and Excel will finish typing the word, giving you the left parentheses, and allows you to select whatever you want, and as a result that will give you there. And this is the one I like myself, since I'm used to typing over the years. Another way of doing it, which is probably this is only for sum, is the alt function and press the plus sign or the equal sign, and it will help you to fill in that for if your hands on the keyboard and you don't want to move them to the mouse. So it's up to you. And here we go. So as we notice here, we ended up getting the same thing. So as you notice, there is multiple ways of doing the same thing when you're using Excel. So now we do have the sum function applied to, or apply the addition to C4 through E4. which is great. So what happens when I go ahead and I wanted to do the same thing for Susie and Jack and Mary? Of course, I'm not going to go to the cell individually and do the sum and the sum and the sum. That's really going to defeat the purpose of using Excel again. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and use the fill handle at the lower right corner of the cell. Click on it and drag it down. Of course, it's going to give you, if you take this out to show you the impact of it, you're going to go ahead and drag it down. And it's going to give you the sum, and we want to know why it's giving me the right sum. So in this case, it was originally to add C4 through E4. When I use the fill handle and I drag it down, see here when I do it here. And one thing I need to mention before I forget, you could really use this by dragging the fill handle down, or when you have many of those and you don't want it to drag it because you don't know where's the end and you don't feel like you want it to do it, just go ahead and double click on the lower right corner. Just double click. See that? And this way we'll do the same thing. That's either, as long as you have data to the left, that Excel will allow you to fill this. So what happens? Sum of E is C4 through E4. Immediately Excel knows how to adjust the newer range, which is C5 through E5, because you just pull the fill handle. So it says, okay, obviously he wants to do the same calculation for Susie's data as he did for John's data. And you would notice here also the sum of C6 through E6, and this is, of course, you guessed it, it's C7 through E7. What is this called? We call it the relative address. I'm relatively addressing the calculation in relation to the new range. So in relation to the new range, sum is going to adjust itself to include the newer data in the calculation. And this is going to come in handy, and it's used heavily. Of course, this is what Excel is all about, but we have to also be warned in very early in these videos in order to avoid a problem, as we will see in the next video. But I'm going to go ahead and mention what I'm going to be dealing with, which is the absolute address, meaning how to prevent a disaster to take place once we really need to do calculation based on different type of cell, as we will see it in the following video. I hope you learned something at this moment, and I hope you realize that even I get to this one here, if I go to the home ribbon and I apply the auto sum, it will give you the auto sum because it guessed that you wanted to add the data close to. However, it did include a cell that should not be included in the calculation. Make sure that this cell should not be included, because anybody could put a number here, and if there is a number here, it's going to be reflected. So you need to select the range yourself. Of course, if that's what you want, you should be able to do it. Of course, you could go ahead and use the fill handle to do the same thing for the sum for each month in this case. The same thing I could say here, average, and if I wanted to find the average for each month, notice that if I hit here average, it's going to select now the wrong range. So you need to be aware of what to select. See, it selected the one on the top of it. That's not exactly what I want. I wanted these, not the closest cell to it. So this is also need to be clear. See, the average is let me see here, the average, the sum. So I need to have the average here. I did, since there is the same value, it's going to be the same value. So we have the average. Hit confirm it. If you want it to stay on the same cell, I'm not going to hold control and hit enter. You're going to get that. Then use the fill handle. You could practice on your own by using the maximum function and the minimum function and see how you're going to use it. So you could label this as average or actually sum per month, you know, and average per month. Then as an exercise, you could do the maximum minimum for each month. All right, the same thing, you start with equal sign, write the function, you hit the tab key. Once the parentheses to the left is open, you select yourself the data that you wanted to include it. We're going to stop here. I hope you will continue with me in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and you have a wonderful day. Thank you.